Hello everybody, Steven here with Cardboard Coalition, and today I figured we'd bring you a how to play of Dungeon Fighter. Now this is the second edition, but this how to play is going to be the same for the 4 new expansions. I mean the second edition's new, but the 4 new expansions. So your Chambers of Malevolent Magma, I'm trying to read the side of the box off to the side and I can't, but they're there, right? So this is a how to play for Dungeon Fighter. So all the Dungeon Fighters kinds of works is for 8+. This version is 1 to 6 players. The expansion ones like the Magma and the Catacombs and the Castle and things like that, those are 4 players. This one plays up to 6 and it takes about 45 minutes. The only difference between what we're going to look at here with these and the other ones is the other ones have, well, one, they'll have different shaped dice, but they have different special dice you can play. They have different obstacles that you can put on the board. And some of them have things to help, like rules to help throw the dice. The Labyrinth, what is it? The Labyrinth of something storms. I forget what it is. Sinister Storms. That one has like a little loop thing that you put on the table and you have to bounce the die through and things like that. But if you know how to play this game, you know how to play the rest. It'll be really easy to incorporate all that kind of stuff. I just realized I set this there. Let's put this right here. Put this right here for this guy. We can put it over here. All right. Anyways. So first, let's run through the setup. The first thing you do is you set down the target board. Now the target board tells you how to put it together. You'll have little letters at the end of each thing. So CC right there, DD, AA, BB. You just kind of follow that. You put the board together. I mean, they only fit together a certain way, so it should be pretty easy. Once you have the board together, then you go ahead and you set up. Oh, I skipped one. Okay, you get the board together. After the board is together, then you pick your heroes, right? So each person picks which hero they want to be. Once they pick the hero, you give each person one of these, which is their health token, and they put it on the top slot. So there's 9 slots. So you have 9 health points, at least to begin with, and they go ahead and put it the top one. Now, once that's done, you go ahead and you create the dungeon deck. So the dungeon deck is right here. I know it's a little blurry, maybe because of the light, but I'll show you guys. And these are sleeved, so it's going to look a little different than when you get out of the box. And I didn't obviously get enough sleeves, but we'll get into that. So dungeon deck, you go ahead and shuffle these up. This is what's going to form your dungeon, and you set them out. So you get your dungeon cards. Once you have the dungeon deck ready, the next thing that you want to do is you create the shop deck. Now the shop deck is over here. I'll step over here. I'll bring them closer so you guys can see them. So you create the shop deck. This gives you a whole bunch of stuff to buy and we'll talk about it. But same thing, give it a shuffle. These are sleeved as well with the Dungeon Fighter sleeves. All right, but that is how the back looks. So you go ahead and set up your shop deck and you put it down. Once you have that done, then you want to go ahead and create your monster deck. Now, if you can see right here, there's a number. So you have level 1, level 2, level 3, and then level 4. So let's go ahead and we'll set them out like this just to so you guys can visually see this. So you have your different dungeon levels. So how you create this deck, if I can figure out where my extra cards, oh, there they are. My extra cards are, so you have obviously more of each of the color. You take them, you give them a quick shuffle, you take 3 of them, set them down. You do it for all 3 of the colors. The yellow, the teal, and then the purple. Then the last setup that you do, the last thing you do, not the last setup, but for the dungeon deck, is you put down all of these. You don't take 3 out, you put down all of your level 4, which are gray. Once you have your 3 for each one, you kind of stack them in order. So there's 4, 3, 2, and 1. You want to make sure 1's on top and they go in numerical order. Then you have your monster deck set up and ready to go. Once the monster deck is set up and ready to go, the next thing you want to do is you want to set the game difficulty. So you go ahead and put out this. This is the monster board. You use this to track the monster's health and the boss's health when we get there. And you have little heart tokens. They're a little darker and they have spikes to designate the monster ones. You have 10s across the top and 1s across the bottom. Now, by setting the difficulty, one of the things they're saying is you have this little token, which gives all the monsters +3 or +5, right? And all you would do with that is if you want +3, you set it over the heart. And it's just a reminder that when any monster comes out, you get +3. And right now I will just kind of do this so I don't forget later. So what this little thing's saying, nah, cat's clawing stuff, sorry. What this is saying is that if you go hit for more than 3 points on the killing blow of the monster, you get 1 coin that you can put in there. And I'll talk about that when we talk about combat, but just so you know what that is while looking at it. So you set your difficulty. We're setting it for an easy or a normal difficulty. So we just have the monster board out. Now, once that's done, then we go ahead and we choose a leader. They say pick it at random, anything else, any other way you want to do it. You can choose rolling dice, anything like that. You can pick a way to pick, but you pick the leader, you go ahead and give them the leader crown. Now, one thing I did forget, though I started, when you're giving each person their hero, in the second edition, some heroes have special ability tokens that it's related to their special ability. You have a gray side and then a colored inside. And it'll tell them on their card. You can tell by symbols which ones they are. And we have a cat on the board. Come on, bro. There we go. Back to it. So you make sure they have that. When you give the hero, you give them their heart. And if anybody needs one of these tokens, you do that. And I've learned over time, and you guys might already know this, if you're the person who owns the game, you probably should pay close attention. Don't do like Steven and screw your friends by not giving them everything they need to play whoever they have, especially in competitive games, just so you know. All right. Anyways, back to it. So we've appointed the leader. Once you appoint the leader, you go ahead and set up the starting loot. That's when you put out the chest here. This is a community thing. Everyone shares this together. You put 2 white die in there, and then you put 2 coins. And these are plastic coins. I thought about getting the metal coins, but it's like $30 for the metal coins, and I decided not to. But there you go. You go ahead and set those in there. Now, the next thing that you do, and this is really the last thing that you do, is you set up your, what do they call it in here? Supply. I was going to say supply. So you set up your supply. And how you go about doing that is you put all your boss cards. So you have a whole deck of them. You have all your boss cards. I like to give them a shuffle. Then you just know what boss, you don't know what boss, but you don't have to shuffle them when it's time. And you set them right there. You go ahead and put out all the extra coins. These are called scars. We'll talk about how those work in a little bit. You put all the extra white dice and the 3 main dice that will be used while going through the dungeon. And just go ahead and set them all right there. These are going to move around, you'll see here in a minute. Once that is done, sorry, shaking the camera. Once that is done, we can go ahead and play the game. And I'll kind of try to walk through the steps so you guys can see. So the leader right here goes ahead and picks 2 cards. They pick a dungeon, but they do it by grabbing 2 cards. They say, I got 2 cards in my hand. What do I do? The leader looks at these without telling anybody. Oh, I got them all kind of mixed up and they'll have to fix them. So they look at the 2 cards and they choose one of them. And they're choosing them based on maybe what you can get, right? And I guess I should go over the nomenclature of the card. The dungeon, the name of the dungeon, there's always a little saying with it. But this is how many shops you get, right? That shows you how many shops. We'll talk about shops here in a second too. This shows you if there's a special throw. Sometimes these are blank, it shows nothing. So this throw is the closed eyes. This one's fun. This one's hot potato. Someone throws you the die and you have to throw it on the table really quick. And then this shows you what you get from the dungeon. So the leader goes ahead and looks at these 2 and they go, man, I want to get to the shop quick. I'm going to go ahead and take this one, put it at the bottom of the deck, and put out this dungeon for everybody to go through. So let me do that really quick, and I'll fix them later because I'm pretty sure they're going all sorts of ways. So we have our dungeon. Once we have our dungeon set up, you take the first monster off the monster deck and you set it down. Now let's go ahead and look at the monster card so you understand the nomenclature or the nomenclature of the monster card. There's this name, it's a mandrake, there's a little picture of it. This is what group it's affiliated with. So it's affiliated with, I think this is witches or maybe wizards. And then it has the level. So you don't have to flip over the card. It shows you the level of the card. This is the monster's health. And then this is the damage the monster causes if you miss. Now let's see if the other monster has a little extra that we can show you. All right. Well, this shows you what you get if you beat the monster. And I'm just going to flip the whole thing so you guys can see. So down here it can have extra things that go on with the monster. Like this can modify throws. I don't think any yellows modify throws. No, they don't. But can modify throws. So now we've revealed the dungeon. Once the dungeon's revealed, we go ahead and go into combat phase. Now this is how combat phase works. So not the first player, the person to the left of the first player gets given the 3 dice. They choose what die they want to use. So now is a really good time to go over the player board. So let's say, well, in this case, old Goldfinger would be the first person to attack. Now he's going to choose his die maybe based on these special abilities, or it is based on these special abilities, but he might be basing it on his or what someone else might want. So if he uses the red die and he gets that symbol when he throws it, he gets to do this special ability, which for humans he gets +4. Everyone has different stuff, and you can look up that later if you guys want to know all the special things. It explains it pretty good on the card. So if he uses the red die, there's a possibility that he can get extra damage, right? So this tells you all your special abilities. This is your health tracker. Like I said earlier, you go from 1 to 9. If you go to 0, you faint. You don't have to flip it over, just kind of faint. You're out for that combat till you're out of that part of the dungeon. So till they beat the monster, right? Then over here, you got your name. You got their, I think they called it the best social or their favorite social media picture. You have their saying. And then down here, let's see if I can get nice and close. This tells you what you can carry, and we'll talk about that in the shop. But these are weapons, that's a shield, and those are potions. All right, so now back to doing the combat. So old Goldfinger, he's going to go ahead and pick the green die because his special ability is if he can land on an eye, a gold piece will be put inside the dungeon. Now, when he gets ready to roll, he checks everything. He checks the dungeon, he checks the monsters card, and then, let's see if I can do a good job with this. Nice. Then he checks any weapons that he might have on him. So just for argument, let's say that he already has a weapon, or if he did, right? I don't want to confuse you guys too much. He would have to close his eyes, and this one means you put the die in someone else's hand, and then you move their hand, throw it on the board. So you check all your things. You don't have to use the weapon, but you may use the weapon. So if he doesn't had it and he didn't choose, he only has to keep his eyes closed because there's nothing else here. So how this is set up right now is really just to show you guys everything. I found while playing this, you want to set, the heroes can move their stuff around, that's kind of fine, but all this extra stuff, you kind of want to set way off to the edge of the table because what you're doing is you're throwing the die at the target. Now the die has to hit the table first, and then it goes into the target. Nice, right? That would be a bullseye. And they tell you if it's a split, you can go with what you want, I believe, but if there's 3 corners in, then you take whatever has the 3 corners in, you count that area. But what you want to do is you throw the die based on stuff. So Goldfinger would have to close their eyes and then throw the die. Did I make it? I made it, right? And then it lands here. So they get 1 damage against the monster. But now, as I kept doing when we were playing the other day, I forgot to do this. So we know he has 6 points. Before we even start the combat, you put his health tracker there. I had a friend that was constantly making sure we had the health tracker going and made me forget it. But before Goldfinger even rolls, you would know how many points that the monster has. And you look at any modifiers, right? We didn't do the extra there. There's nothing here to modify. So we're fine. 6 points. Goldfinger gets 1 hit. So the Mandrake goes down to 5 points. Now, if the die doesn't bounce and hits the target, doesn't bounce on the table, that's considered a miss. If it hits and lands right here, that's considered a miss. If you throw it and it bounces, oh, I didn't do it enough, and goes all the way over, that's considered a miss. but you still got the eye. Some of these are no matter what, you get something. Some of them say if you hit, some of them say if you miss. So it really depends on these abilities. But you would add that, say the eye, the gold doesn't matter, right? It just means if the eye comes up, you would take one piece of gold. In this instance, Goldfinger would be able to get a piece of gold for the raiding party, for the shop later, right? So let's go back to where he was. He was on 1. Now what happens is you go clockwise or to your left, and he would pass the dice over to, who is this? Marvin over here. Now, Marvin would pick based on what's there, what he wants to roll. Now, Marvin has, here, let me see if I can lift this up for you guys. He has the witch or wizards, whatever that is. I think that's the witches, +4. So he's going to take the red die and roll the red die. Because if he hits, and he has to hit and gets the eye, he gets a +4. So he's going to go ahead and roll it. And he misses, right? But he gets the eye. That's so sad, right? So let's say that he makes it. Let's say it didn't go as far. And he gets a 1 too. Well, because he got a hit and he got the eye, he can use his special ability under red. So he can hit for 4 more. Now, that's because he has the symbol. Now, the other thing that could happen, let's see if I can do this again, and I'm doing it blind for you guys. Oh, that'd be an amazing hit, 8 points. But let's say it rolled off again, right? This is what these coins are for. He can use it. Oh, no, he can't. Sorry. If he was using the blue die, he could have used it, right? If he was using this die, which he wouldn't have, and it missed, then he could use this and re-roll, things like that. That's how this works. But back to it. Back to all the imaginary, this works out perfectly because this game is fun and how bad you fail. So he lands on the 1, let's say, but he's gotten the eye, so he gets 4 more damage. That puts Mandrake down 5. Bloop. And they beat Mandrake. But let's say, for all the fun jokes. My first roll counted, right? Rolls off the table. That doesn't matter because this special ability is on a hit. Now it's up to, is it Wilrond? Wilrond over here. He's only got the blue die. So he takes the blue die and he rolls it, right? Blind, and he throws it. He makes it on the 4, right? He gets 4. His special ability, if you hit, deal +3 damage to the monster that has more life points than you do. To a monster that has more life points. Well, he has 9. The Mandrake has 9. 6 doesn't work. But he gets 4. That would bring the Mandrake down here, right? Actually, I made a mistake there. He can roll. He could have chosen to roll this missed die too. So he could have chosen to roll that, but he rolled the blue. There we go. So he's down to 1. We still have 1 more die here. So this die would go over here, and then this player would roll, and they have to roll the red die because it's the only one they have. So they would take it, they would roll, blind roll, rolls all the way off the board again. That's considered a miss, right? And so they got an eye, but it's sworn enemy on her too, and it's sworn enemy for, I can't see that from here, but she would have gotten +1. So if she would have landed here, she would have got 2 instead of 1. And if it's the specific, the card matches up, she would have gotten +4. But it's gone over there. Now, that means that it would go over to Goldfinger, so on and so forth. Let's say she did get the 1, and it only brought the monster down to 2 points. They still have 2 health points after all 3 die have hit the target. Now, you have some options from there. The first option is that you can take one of these die from your chest. So let's go with that one. And it's the same thing. So let's say this is where we're at. Goldfinger's chance. He blind throws. Doesn't matter if you knock a die off. You kind of just put it back where it goes. But he hit another 1. But Goldfinger can choose any of these things to work. So if they were there and he hit that 1, he could say 2. That would end up killing the monster. The other option that you have is every player at the table can take damage up to the monster's level. So level 1 monster, everyone can take 1 damage like this. And then old Goldfinger would be able to take all these dice off the board and you start all over. He chooses which die he wants to roll, he rolls a die, so on and so forth. So you go through all that until you get this down to 0 and you defeat the monster. Now you could discard them. I usually just put them under, or you could just take them out of the game and put them in the box. This card stays out because you want to count your shops, or at least that's kind of how I set it. I would just kind of leave a discard thing sitting down here. Now, you keep rolling through and you keep picking, right? Grab your 2 cards, picking. Let's see if we can get it to the number we want. Until you have 10 or more shops. Right? I showed you guys these shop things. Once you have 10 or more shops, then from there, you go ahead and you take your shop deck. I guess I can grab the whole thing. I just want to grab part of it. Let's say you've beaten the last monster. You've beaten that dungeon. This is a jump shot, by the way. It's kind of fun. But let's say you did that and you're ready to go, right? So one of the things that I will point out, I know I'm backtracking, Goldfinger killed through the last die that killed the monster. Goldfinger would get the crown, the leader. So he would have picked the next 2 dungeons and picked one, and then whoever is the last person to put damage on the monster gets the leader token, and then the person to the left leader is always the first to attack the monster. All right, so back to the shop. We have our at least 10 shop icons. I think we have 11 there. So what happens when it's time for the shop is you go ahead and you take 2 cards plus how many players you have. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So in this instance, we have 4 shop cards. Now we take these cards, we go ahead and lay them out so everybody can see them. Of course, I don't get one of the cards that I'm looking for, so I'm going to look for that right now. And then right now, everyone gets a chance. So let's go ahead and take one of these out and put that one down. Ooh, that one down. All right, you're not supposed to do that. You just take them off the top, but I just want the different cards. All right, so from here as a group, we can decide at the shop to do a couple things. 1, we can pay 2 coins, right? We don't have a lot of coins. Remember, we kind of skip forward to buy a die. Every die is 2 coins. You can add a die to the chest, which I think is a good thing to do. The other thing to do, the other thing to do is you can buy health. Now, off the top of my head, I just forgot the health. I believe the health is 1, and then everybody gets to heal. Of course, it's just too far back. All right. So the health is you spend 1 coin is 1 health, but to every hero. So you can spend 1 coin, right? And each hero can bump up 1 health, right? 1 health, 1 health, 1 health. Now, the other thing that you can do is buy as many of these as you can. Every once in a while, there's a 2 coin one. A lot of them, some of them are no coins, so you can buy that for free. And then most of them are 1 coin. Now, the different cards that you have here are your weapons cards. These you can use all the time for every attack, no matter what. You can use them all the time, over and over again, but you have to perform whatever it says. This one does the hot potato. Someone throws you the die, you throw it on the board, but you get +2 on whatever you hit. So let's say they decide to buy this one. They're going to take this one because it's free, and then they have some choices. At this point, they've spent 1 coin. They have 1 coin left. They can't buy this one, but they're going to buy this one. And let's say that's all they can get, and it sets everything up. So what we have here is we have a weapon, right? I'll go ahead and leave these here. We have a shield right here, and then we have a potion. Now, weapons can be used all the time. You could choose to use them or not. Potions, they all say it on here too. You use once and you discard. This one gives all heroes 2 life points. And then how the shield works is anytime that you miss and you have to take damage, you can exhaust the shield by turning it sideways or tap it, either one, champions or magic. And it says once per combat. So until the end of the combat, let's say Goldfinger had it and he used it till the end of the combat, it's tapped. Once he used it once, it's tapped. Weapons you can use over and over again, and potions you use and then you discard. And everything that so they bought these 3 things. Everything that you don't buy, you kind of create a discard pile. And like I said, this is just kind of cramped right here. Whichever way you want, you discard them, they're done. You can put them at the bottom if you want, any way you want to do it. Now, these 3 that have been bought, you can give to anybody. The only stipulation, like I said, we use Goldfinger here again, the only stipulation is what they can hold. He can hold 2 weapons, 1 shield, and 2 potions, right? And everybody is a little different. Let's look at Merca Meat Cleavers. She can hold 3 weapons and 2 potions. She can't hold any shields. So you see it down there. So what you do is you go ahead and you divvy out. So let's give Goldfinger this, I guess. No. Let's give this weapon to her. You go ahead and just give her the weapon. You give this weapon to Goldfinger, and you give this one, whoever. We can give it to one of the wizards over here. Now, this also doesn't mean it permanently stays with them. During the resting phase, after each dungeon, after you've gone through the dungeon and killed the monster, you can swap things out and give them to different people, so on and so forth. Now, you want to go to the shop 3 times, right? You want to get these 10 3 times. Once you get the 10 3 times, you go to the boss. So let's say this is our 3rd time. We're very poorly equipped for going through this 3 times, but we take these at the end of the shop phase, and we go ahead and we put them at the bottom of the deck, right? If this wasn't the boss phase, then we'd go ahead and whoever's the leader takes 2 cards and you form the dungeon and go through it. But if we've gone to the shop 3 times, then we fight the boss. It says shuffle and then take 1 out, but we shuffled it already. You go ahead and flip it over and there's your boss, right? This is the boss you have to fight. To win, you have to beat this guy. So you can put it wherever you want. I'll put it right here for now. He's got 25 health. This is the weakest boss in the group. So 25 health. What is this? 8 goblins, 1 sword. Interesting choice. Gang, all target sections count as 1. All right, so this is a modifier. So let's look at how the boss card works. Works like most of the monster cards. This means they're a boss. This is their health. This is their damage if you miss. And these are any special actions that they have going on. So in this one, it says everywhere on the target is +1. Like I said, we're sorely set up to fight this boss. Now, the difference in the boss battle is you have no dungeon modifier. The only modifiers you'll have to throws are any modifiers that you have on your cards, like this one, the hot potato throw. And the other thing is, I'm just going like this to put them out on the target. Once all 3 of the colored dice have been used, you could only use white dice. You don't have the option to take damage to do this. So in this sense, I mean, we'll just go with this. They're woefully low. They're very low. And at this point, they can make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points of damage, maybe some modified. They're probably not going to beat this boss. Now, remember, if someone gets all the way down to 0 for missing and stuff, they're out. They can't play anymore. Well, you don't have to flip it, but I think it's kind of interesting to flip it. They're out until the end of the round. Well, if it's the boss round, they're out until the boss round's over. Now, the other thing, or the last thing I'll talk about, and I maybe should have talked about them earlier, but we'll go like this. You have scars. Anytime you faint, you're out of that round. So let's say they fainted on a monster. After the dungeon phase, and after the resting phase or during the resting phase, you can come back to life, but you have to take a scar. And you can choose where that scar goes. And what that is doing is it's blocking that special ability. You have 1 health, or not 1 health. You still can put, let's see if I can set it down to it so I can use both hands. There we go. So let's say Goldfinger, the first time he faints, he puts this up here maybe. He's like, we're not getting any humans, I don't care. So his life, at the top of his life thing, it'll go right here. So he's lost 2 of his life. So now he has 7 instead of 9. And every time you faint, you got to pick 1 and put it down. So now he has 5 instead of 9. And at this point, he only has 3. So anytime you faint, when you recover, you get a scar. Your scar takes away your health. So keep that in mind. That's how scars work. And if fighting the boss, fighting any monsters, all heroes faint during the fight, they're out of the game, even if you're fighting the regular monsters. Now, if you're fighting the boss, the thing that really holds you back, one, if everybody faints, they're out of the game. And the other thing is, if you use all your dice. So let's go ahead and look at the monsters. Say this is the roll. So, oh, but it's only worth 1. So it's 1, 2, 3. They've gotten 3 damage. Let's be kind and say they got 4 damage because we did some hot potato throwing. We have these 2 dice. Let's go ahead and see how they help out. It doesn't really matter. So most of the corners right here would have been on 2, so it's not out. So that's a 2. This one is half and half. I'll have to remember, I think half and half, you pick the lower one, but half and half. Here's the one thing. The only way they could have won this one is if they get in here. This is an insta-kill. Insta-kill kills even the boss, any of the monsters right away, and it gives you that extra 3, which would give you gold. So insta-kill. Last night when we played, it's how we ended up winning it. Someone threw it and it landed like that. And we're like, insta-kill, right? And we won the boss. But let's say it's like this. So at this point, they put 1, 2 more. So 1, and that would bring us down to what, 19. So you'd go like that. If you've used all your dice against the boss and you have no more dice to throw, you lose. So to win, you have to make it all the way through the dungeon. You make it through the shop 3 times by collecting up shop things, right? The little shop icons. Once you've hit the shop 3 times, then you go see the boss, and then you have to beat the boss. So to win the game, you have to beat the boss, right? Losing the game is if all your heroes die, or if you're in the boss phase and you've used all your dice and you still haven't beat the boss. And that is how you play Dungeon Fighter. And like I said, if you have any of the other ones, it's the same thing. But this one was specifically for Dungeon Fighter, the 2nd edition, right? So 8 plus player age, 1 to 6 players for this one. The other ones are 1 to 4, and it takes about 45 minutes. I hope you guys have enjoyed this how to play. I hope it helps you. And like I said, you could play all the other ones too if you understand how to play this one. I'm Steven with Cardboard Coalition. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.